The guest room smelled like lavender and regret. Harper had clearly tried. Fresh sheets, a small vase of flowers on the nightstand, even one of those fancy diffusers that young people seem to think can solve any problem. But we both knew I didn't want to be here, and she didn't want me here either. "Mom, you're all set," Mason said, placing my suitcase on the luggage rack. His smile was too bright, too determined. "Harper put extra towels in the bathroom and she cleared out 2 drawers for you." "How generous," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. My son shot me a look, that particular blend of hope and warning I'd been seeing a lot lately. Harper appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Dinner's at 6:30, I made chicken." "Lovely." I settled onto the edge of the bed, my ankle throbbing despite the medication. "I appreciate you opening your home to me." The words came out stiffer than I intended. Harper's expression flickered. Was that hurt? Annoyance? I couldn't tell anymore. She'd been a mystery to me since the day Mason brought her home 3 years ago. Too modern, too direct, always checking that phone of hers. "It's our home, Julia," Mason said, gently squeezing my shoulder. "Your family." After they left, I stared at my reflection in the mirror above the dresser. 56 years old, and here I was, dependent on my son and his wife, because I'd been foolish enough to think I could clean my gutters myself. The doctors said 6 weeks minimum before the fracture would heal. 6 weeks in this lavender-scented room, trying not to be a burden, trying not to notice how Harper looked at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. I'd raised Mason to be independent, to think for himself. And he had. Right into the arms of a woman who meal prepped on Sundays, ordered groceries through apps, and thought a home-cooked meal meant something assembled from a kit. But she made him happy, I reminded myself. That had to count for something, didn't it? The kitchen incident happened on day 3. I'd woken early. Old habits die hard, and found Harper already gone to work. Mason had left a note. "Meeting ran early. Back by lunch. Please rest." The exclamation point felt like a gentle scold. I made coffee the way I liked it, strong enough to wake the dead, and noticed the breakfast dishes piled in the sink. Harper's morning smoothie glass, Mason's cereal bowl. The counter had crumbs scattered across it, and someone had left the butter out. My fingers itched. At home, I never went to bed with dishes in the sink. My mother had taught me that. A clean kitchen was a peaceful mind. Before I knew what I was doing, I was loading the dishwasher, wiping down the counters, putting things back where they belonged. Except I didn't know where things belonged here. The coffee mugs went in 3 different cabinets before I found the right one. The dish soap lived under the sink in one house, next to the stove in another. I was reorganizing their spice rack, who keeps oregano next to cinnamon, when I heard the front door open. "Julia?" Harper's voice had that tight quality I'd learned to recognize. "What are you doing?" I turned, suddenly aware of how this must look. "Oh, I couldn't sleep and I saw the dishes. I was going to do those." She set her bag down hard on the counter. "I always do them when I get home." "Well, they're done now," I said, trying to smile. "No harm, no foul." "You rearranged my cabinets." She opened the one where I'd moved the mugs, then closed it slowly. "Did you also reorganize the spices?" I noticed the oregano was with the cinnamon. "I know, that's where I keep it." Her jaw was tight. "Because I use them both when I make my Sunday sauce, and it's easier to grab them together." Of course. There was a system. There was always a system. And I just steamrolled right over it like I knew better, like I always did. "Harper, I'm sorry, I was just trying to help." Help would have been staying in bed like Mason asked. She started pulling mugs out, moving them back. Help would have been trusting that I can manage my own kitchen. The words stung more than they should have. I retreated to the guest room, my ankle screaming in protest at how quickly I'd moved. Behind me, I heard Harper making angry noises with the cabinet doors, setting her house back to rights. When Mason came home at lunch, I could hear them through the walls, her voice sharp and frustrated, his low and soothing. I pressed my hands over my ears like a child and tried not to feel like the worst mother-in-law in the world. At dinner that night, we picked at Harper's chicken, which was actually quite good, though I'd never tell her so now, and made painful small talk about the weather. More wine? Mason asked, too cheerfully. Please, Harper and I said in unison, then looked away from each other. My son sighed. It was a sound that contained multitudes. Exhaustion, frustration, love stretched too thin. This is going to be a long 6 weeks if we can't figure out how to coexist. I said I was sorry, I offered. And I said okay, Harper replied, not looking at me. Did you, though? Mason set down his fork. Did either of you actually hear each other? Silence. I studied my plate. Harper studied her wine glass. Mum, Harper works 10-hour days. She's exhausted. Coming home to someone else touching her stuff, even with good intentions, feels invasive. I understand that now, I said quietly. And Harper, he continued, turning to his wife, Mum's not trying to criticize you. She's used to being independent, and sitting still makes her crazy. She's trying to feel useful. Harper's expression softened slightly. She could have asked first. You're right, I should have. I met her eyes across the table. I'm not good at being taken care of. I'm used to being the one who does the taking care of. Something shifted in Harper's face. Recognition, maybe. I get that. I'm not great at it either. Mason reached for both our hands, squeezing them. See? Common ground. You're both terrible at accepting help. Despite myself, I laughed. Harper's lips twitched, fighting a smile. Baby steps, Mason said. That's all I'm asking. Baby steps. The baby steps were tiny, microscopic, almost invisible to the naked eye. Harper started leaving me little notes about where things were. Coffee pods in the Lazy Susan. Help yourself. I stopped reorganizing and started asking, where would you like me to put this? But the tension remained, humming beneath every interaction like an electrical wire waiting to spark. I commented that her pasta was a little soft. She heard, "You're a terrible cook." She suggested I use the grab bar in the shower. I heard, "You're old and fragile." Mason, poor Mason, spent his days sending us carefully worded text messages. Remember, Mom, Harper's doing her best. Harper, can you maybe not mention Mom's age? He created a family calendar, instituted family dinners at 6:30 sharp, and bought a meditation app that none of us used. 2 weeks in, I caught Harper stress-eating crackers over the sink at midnight. Can't sleep? I asked from the doorway. She jumped, scattering crumbs. God, Julia, you scared me. Sorry, my ankle was bothering me. I hobbled to the table, lowering myself carefully into a chair. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. She grabbed the wine bottle from the fridge, poured herself a glass without asking if I wanted one, then paused and poured me one too. Work's crazy. I have a presentation due Friday, and the house is a mess. The house looks fine, I said, accepting the wine. It's not, though. Look at it. She gestured wildly at the perfectly acceptable kitchen. There are dishes in the sink again, the laundry's piled up, and I keep meaning to meal prep, but I'm so tired when I get home. I sipped my wine, choosing my words carefully. You know, when Mason was little, I tried to do everything too. Work full-time, keep a perfect house, be the perfect mother. I made myself sick with exhaustion. Harper slumped into the chair across from me. How did you manage? I didn't. Not really. I just got better at lowering my standards. I smiled at her surprise. The house doesn't have to be perfect, Harper. It just has to be lived in. Tell that to Pinterest. She laughed, but it sounded brittle. Everyone online makes it look so easy. Work, marriage, beautiful home, amazing dinners. I feel like I'm failing at all of it. You're not failing. You're human. I paused, then added quietly, and for what it's worth, I haven't made things easier for you. I'm sorry about that. She looked up, eyes shining. I'm sorry too. I know I get defensive. It's just, I always feel like you're judging me, like nothing I do is good enough. The words landed like a punch. Harper, I don't. You do, though. You comment on my cooking, my cleaning, how I organize things. Even when you're trying to help, it feels like criticism. I wanted to argue, to defend myself. but sitting there in her kitchen at midnight, watching this exhausted young woman who loved my son enough to let his difficult mother move in, I realized she was right. I was 26 when I had Mason, I said slowly. His father had just left, and I was terrified I'd do everything wrong. My mother-in-law, Mason's grandmother, she'd visit and point out every little mistake. The way I folded his clothes, how I warmed his bottles. I swore I'd never do that to my son's wife. But you do, Harper said, not unkindly. But I do. I finished my wine. I think maybe I'm afraid that if I'm not useful, if I'm not the one who knows how to do things right, then what am I? I'm just the old lady in the guest room, waiting to heal. Harper was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're Mason's mom. That's enough." Something cracked open in my chest. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Also," she added, "you're not that old. 56 isn't ancient." "Tell that to my ankle." She laughed, a real laugh this time. We finished our wine in companionable silence, and when we said goodnight, something had shifted. The wire wasn't humming quite so loudly anymore. And the friendship didn't bloom overnight. It sprouted slowly, in small moments. Harper taught me how to order groceries online, laughing at my frustration with the app. "No, Julia, you have to swipe left to delete items, not right. Why not just cross them off with a pen?" "Because we don't have the list on paper." "We could, but then how would the store know what to bring us?" "A person could read the list," she grinned. "Welcome to the future, Julia. It's weird and confusing, and your grocery bags show up at your door like magic." I told her stories from my youth, the time I accidentally dyed my hair orange trying to go blonde, the summer I worked at a roller rink and broke my wrist showing off. She listened, actually listened, and asked questions that showed she cared. We started cooking together. She taught me shortcuts I initially resisted. Frozen vegetables weren't poisonous, it turned out, and pre-minced garlic saved time without sacrificing much flavour. I showed her how to properly brown meat, how to build layers of flavour instead of relying on the kit instructions. "So you add the tomato paste first?" she asked, watching me work. "It toasts slightly, caramelizes, brings out the sweetness." "Huh. The kit never mentioned that. The kit doesn't know everything." She bumped my shoulder gently. "Neither do you." Touché. Mason watched these interactions with barely concealed delight, texting me later. "Whatever you two are doing, keep doing it. Harper actually smiled when she mentioned you today." I smiled too, typing back. "She's not so bad. Don't tell her I said that." So the accident happened on week 5. I was feeling confident, too confident, and decided to help Harper bring in the groceries. She'd ordered extra heavy items, cat litter, bulk paper towels, cases of sparkling water. My ankle was nearly healed and I was tired of being waited on. "Julia, I've got it," Harper said, lugging bags from the car. "Nonsense. I'm not an invalid." I reached for the cat litter, misjudged its weight, and felt my ankle roll. I would have fallen hard if Harper hadn't dropped her bags and caught me, but in catching me, she twisted wrong, and we both went down in a tangle of limbs and scattered groceries. "Oh, God," I gasped. "Harper, are you okay?" "My wrist, ow." She cradled her left arm against her chest, face pale. Mason, who'd just pulled into the driveway, came running. "What happened, Mom? Harper?" "I'm fine," I said, though my ankle was screaming. "Harper caught me. Check on her." At urgent care, we sat side by side in the waiting room like wounded soldiers. Harper's wrist was sprained, my ankle re-aggravated but not re-broken. Mason paced between us, running his hands through his hair. "This is my fault," I said quietly. "It's not," Harper replied. "I should have asked for help with the heavy stuff. I should have let you handle it. We both should have been more careful." Mason stopped pacing. "You're both okay. That's what matters." But that night, sitting in the living room with ice packs and pain medication, something broke open. Maybe it was the adrenaline crash. Maybe it was seeing how scared Mason had been. Maybe it was simply time. "I'm terrified of being a burden," I said into the quiet. "My whole life I've been the strong one, the one people rely on. This accident, having to stay here, needing help, it's my worst nightmare. Harper turned to look at me. You think I'm not terrified too? Of what? Of never measuring up. Of you thinking I'm not good enough for your son. Of proving right every doubt you've ever had about me. Her voice cracked. I've spent 3 years trying to be perfect around you, and I'm exhausted. Harper, I don't think you're not good enough. You don't? She laughed bitterly. You criticize everything I do. I'm critical of everything, period. It's who I am. It has nothing to do with you specifically. I shifted my ice pack. My mother was like that too. Nothing was ever quite right. I swore I wouldn't be like her, but here I am, doing the same thing. Mason, who'd been pretending not to listen, spoke up. You're both so worried about what the other thinks that you can't see what's actually there. Which is what? Harper asked. That you care about each other. That you're both trying, even when it's hard. That you're both terrified of the same things, not being good enough, not being loved, not being wanted. I looked at Harper. She looked at me. Mason was right, of course. He'd always been the wisest one in the family. I do care about you, I said carefully. I'm just not very good at showing it. I'm prickly and judgmental and set in my ways. I'm defensive and oversensitive, and I let Pinterest convince me I'm failing at life, Harper replied. We're quite a pair. The worst. We both smiled. Mason sat down between us, putting one arm around each of us. I love you both. So much. Can we please try to remember that we're on the same team? Same team, I agreed. Same team, Harper echoed. My ankle throbbed. Harper's wrist was swelling despite the ice. We were broken and healing and figuring it out as we went. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And maybe that was enough. And the last week of my stay transformed into something I hadn't expected, something I didn't want to end. Harper and I developed routines. Morning coffee together before she left for work, where we'd talk about her presentation or her boss or the funny thing that happened at the grocery store. Afternoon cooking sessions where we'd prep dinner together, no kits required, just two women figuring out what to make with chicken thighs and vegetables. She showed me how to use Spotify, and I made her listen to Fleetwood Mac. This is actually good, she admitted, surprised. Not everything old is bad, I teased. And not everything new is scary, she shot back. Jury's still out on that grocery app. You ordered wine through it yesterday. Once? I ordered wine once. She taught me her job, explaining what she did in terms I could understand. I told her about my career in nursing, the patients I'd loved, the ones who'd broken my heart. We talked about Mason, his quirks, his strengths, how proud we both were of the man he'd become. He got his kindness from you, Harper said one afternoon. And his stubbornness, I added. That too. When my doctor cleared me to go home, I should have been relieved. 6 weeks had turned into 7, and I'd gotten my life back, my independence, my space, my kitchen, where I knew where everything belonged. But packing my suitcase felt wrong. Mason helped me load the car, making cheerful conversation about how nice it would be to sleep in my own bed. Harper stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, not quite meeting my eyes. Well, I said when everything was packed, thank you both. For everything. Of course, Mom. Mason hugged me tight. Call us when you get home? I will. I turned to Harper, unsure what to say. She looked uncertain too, like we were back at the beginning, two strangers trying to find common ground. Then she said, Julia, wait. I waited. You don't have to leave so soon. I actually like having you here. The words hit me sideways. You do? Yeah, it's weird, right? 6 weeks ago I was dreading this. But now, she shrugged, smiling. Now I'd miss you. Our morning coffee, the cooking, the stories. I'd miss you. Something warm unfurled in my chest. I reached for her hand, squeezed it. Then don't call me your mother-in-law, call me a friend. Harper's eyes filled with tears. She pulled me into a hug. A real one, not the awkward side hugs we'd exchanged at family gatherings. I hugged her back, breathing in her floral shampoo, feeling her shoulders shake slightly with emotion. When we pulled apart, Mason was beaming, phone out. Did you just take a picture? I demanded. Absolutely. This is going in the family album. He showed us the screen. Harper and me, foreheads touching, smiling through tears. Historical moment. First genuine hug. There have been other hugs, Harper protested. Not like that one. He was right. That hug was different. That hug meant something. I unloaded my suitcase from the car. Another week? I suggested. Just to be safe. Make sure the ankle's really healed. Another week, Harper agreed, grinning. And then maybe you could visit on weekends, Mason added hopefully. Help Harper with her Sunday cooking. If Harper wants me to. Harper took my hand again, squeezed it. I want you to. We stood there in the driveway, the three of us, connected. Mason's family, not by blood for Harper and me, but by something harder earned and more precious. By choice, by effort, by learning to love each other, not despite our differences, but because we'd figured out how to bridge them. The guest room still smelled like lavender, but it didn't smell like regret anymore. It smelled like hope, like second chances, like the beginning of something good. I'd come here broken, afraid of being a burden. I left. Well, I didn't leave. Not yet. I stayed because sometimes the best healing happens not when we recover our independence, but when we learn we don't have to carry everything alone. Harper taught me about apps and shortcuts and letting go of perfection. I taught her about building flavor and trusting herself and remembering that good enough really is good enough. But the most important thing we taught each other, that family isn't just the people you're born to or the ones you marry into. Family is the people who catch you when you fall, even when catching you means falling too. Family is morning coffee and midnight wine and learning to say I'm sorry and actually mean it. Family is choosing each other. Every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Mason made dinner that night. He insisted, since both Harper and I were still nursing our injuries. It was terrible, completely overdone, and we ate every bite while teasing him mercilessly. Next time, less heat, Harper advised. And maybe some seasoning, I added. More salt, we said together, then laughed. Mason rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. His two favourite people finally on the same team. Finally friends. I looked around the table, at my son, patient and loving, at my daughter-in-law, strong and real. At the messy kitchen and the imperfect meal and the life we were building together, one awkward conversation at a time. And I thought this is what I was afraid of losing. Not my independence, not my usefulness, but this sense of belonging, of being wanted, of being home. The funny thing about fear is that sometimes what you're most afraid of is exactly what you need. I'd been terrified of being a burden, of being dependent, of losing myself in someone else's house. Instead, I found a friend. I found family. I found that being needed and needing others aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of being human, of being loved. Harper caught my eye across the table and smiled. I smiled back. To family, Mason said, raising his water glass. To family, Harper and I echoed. We clinked glasses, and in that small moment, everything felt right. Not perfect. We'd never be perfect. But real and true, and exactly where we all needed to be. The guest room was still mine for another week, maybe longer. Maybe, if I was being honest, for as long as I wanted it. Because I'd finally learned what Mason had known all along. Home isn't a place where you're independent and strong and never need anyone. Home is where you're allowed to be weak, where you're caught when you fall, where you're loved not despite your flaws, but because you're brave enough to show them. Home is where someone makes you coffee in the morning and teaches you about apps and catches you in the driveway and says, "Stay. I'd miss you if you left." Home is where you belong. And I belonged here, in this warm, chaotic house in San Diego, with my son and his wife and our messy, imperfect, beautiful life together. I belonged here. Finally, I belonged.